Everyone to our webinar on financial planning for families that have children with special needs. Our presenter today is Austin Duke. He's a financial advisor with Edward Jones, and he's also a father of 5 children. One son has special needs, so he's got a nice close connection to our community. We are recording today's webinar, so I just want to let everybody know so that you're aware of that. We're going to make this available for families who couldn't join us live. Thank you so much for having your microphones on mute and for disabling your camera function. There's a chat feature. If you look at the top right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little chat bubble, and we will be using the chat feature. Austin will have a Q&A session after his presentation. So if you have questions, feel free to put them into the chat as we go along so you don't forget about it. Or hold them to the end, and we will definitely make sure that we have time to answer your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera and mute my microphone and turn the presentation over to Austin.
All right, thanks, Sylvia. And I want to say thanks to Sylvia and the United Angels Foundation for allowing me to present today. Let me get the presentation pulled up. I'm not as familiar with this system, but we'll go. Sylvia, we did this the other day. How come it's not working now? I don't know.
It's coming up right now.
Okay.
It says you are presenting. I don't see your slides. It says you're presenting. Are you presenting a tab or your whole screen?
I think I presented the whole screen. Hold on, let me. We should have done this first, sorry. All right, so we're doing a window.
Yes, yeah, if you select the window where the slides are in, that should show up, and if it doesn't, then I can pull it up on my end too for you.
Okay, how about now?
I don't see him. Oh, Wayne Bonner says that we see it. Okay, all right.
Perfect, okay. So it's kind of wild. I'm more of a face-to-face, in-person seminar type presenter. I can get a little bit more reaction as opposed to just talking to a camera. So this environment is very interesting, but it's still a good format to get information out, and appreciate those who are coming in today and participating. But I've titled this Financial Planning 101. Without knowing the specific circumstance for everybody that's going to be attending today, I'm going to keep it relatively broad-based, and federal regulations prohibit me from making any kind of specific recommendations. So I'll do the best I can in the Q&A to give as specific an answer as I can, but I'll have contact information at the end. If we need to have a phone call or something after to discuss something specific, we can do that at a later time. But suffice it to say that there's way too much to cover when we talk about financial planning in 1 hour. So it'll be kind of, I'll try to get as much covered as I can. Tell you a little bit about how I work with individuals and what we talk about, and then we can kind of go from there. Just to give a little introduction for myself and my family. So I'm Austin Duke. I'm originally from Mesa, Arizona. My wife tells me I have an Arizona accent, which I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I've been in Utah since 2004, and all of my Utah friends tell me they don't notice. So anyway, I've got 5 kids. This blonde-haired boy just below my chin is Adam. He is my son who was diagnosed with autism, and has really fueled the passion that I have to work with other families who have kids with special needs, and is an area that I focus on. But in addition to that, I also really enjoy working with people who, by and large, don't feel like they have enough money to get good financial advice. I think that there's a stigma in the industry where there are institutions who do impose account minimums or investable asset minimums, and so they feel like they have to do a Google search, or there's just not a good way for them to get good financial information. But for me, when I came into the industry, I knew that the people I wanted to work with were those who valued professional advice, who didn't want to do it on their own, but they still wanted to be educated and engaged in that process. And so as long as people meet those three criteria, for me, it doesn't matter how much money, if they're just starting out or if they're close to retirement or they are retired, it's doesn't matter a whole lot for me. But I believe that that financial planning can be broken down into three questions or three steps. And so when I meet with individuals, these are the three steps that we'll discuss. The first is, where am I right now? And then where do you want to be and how do you get there? So we'll sit down and we'll have a conversation. I want to know as much about your life experience, your investment experience as I can, so that I can pick an investment strategy that you will stick to regardless of what's going on with the economy and the stock market. I think a lot of times we'll see individuals who try to do it on their own will end up buying in at the worst time because they have friends at work or family members who have done extraordinarily well in the stock market and they have a fear of missing out. So they'll buy in, and it's usually right at the top before we see a decline in the market. So the market then declines, and then they are afraid it's never going to stop, and so they sell out, and that's usually right about the time that it bottoms and comes back up. So trying to find out, what kind of experience you've had, and what types of investments, if it's been stocks and bonds, if it's been real estate, or business ownership, other types of investing, that gives me a clearer picture of where we would go with a financial plan. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of behavioral characteristics that go into how people respond with their money. And so if there's a strategy that I can get people into that maybe it's not going to do as well as some other strategies, but that's what you're going to stick to and you're going to be comfortable with it, that's really what I'm going for. The second step then is where do you want to be, right? So right now you want to look at a retirement goal, and where do you want to be? What does that look like? And how long do you have until we reach that goal? And how much are you able to put into an investment strategy? And what kind of growth do you need to get over that time period so that you can hit that retirement goal or whatever the case may be? And then finally, how do you get there? And this is really the area that I thrive in. Before I joined Edward Jones and became a financial advisor, my job was what we call portfolio management or investment management, where I was doing the research and picking the investments to put our clients into. And so any financial planner can sit and punch in the numbers in a calculator, and you could probably even do it on some websites if you did a Google search. And figure out how much you need to save and how much growth you need to get between now and when you achieve that goal. But where I'm different with my education and my experience is I can pick the investments that'll actually get you there. And my overarching strategy is not to put you at more risk than you need to. If you only need to get 5% growth, then we're going to put you into a strategy that's aimed at 5%, not 10% or something ridiculously crazy, because that's generally more risky of a strategy than just what you need. So ultimately, I help people make good investment decisions. I wanted to quote myself. I couldn't find anybody else who said this before, so that's my quote. But this is really what I get to do on a daily basis, and I get to continue to do my research. I get to continue looking up good investment choices for people, and the best part about my job, because everybody's different, I can come up with 2 or 3 different options, present them to my clients, and they get to have some ownership, and they get to be engaged in the process of we're going to take this option, and ultimately I intend to be a financial advisor for my entire career. If something should happen to me, I want my clients to know at least enough that they can get by until they can find somebody else, but really also that they can know the difference between a good financial advisor and maybe a not so good financial advisor. I think there's a lot of salesmen in this industry where, again, with account minimums, they won't talk to people unless they have $250,000 of investable assets, because they have sales goals. Their companies are making them bring in only those high net worth clients, as we call them. But the reason I came to Edward Jones is because that's not the case. We don't do minimums for people, depending on the strategy we're going to put them into. But everybody gets to run their own branch the way they want to. So I can bring in as many clients or as few clients as I want, and then I can just service the ones that I've got, and eventually say, I'm not taking any new more clients. So anyway, so that's a big factor for me. On this slide, this was created by JP Morgan Asset Management, and this is showing the growth of different types of investments over the past 20 years. So if you think of the last 20 years, we've had the dot-com bubble burst and the recession that followed in 2000, 2001. We had 9/11. We had the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009. And so these are still the growth on an annual basis for all these different types of investments. On the far right, you see an orange bar representing the average investor at 1.9% per year, which wasn't even enough to keep up with inflation at 2.2. And this really goes back to the emotional and behavioral characteristics of the average investor, and people doing it on their own and really putting themselves into a strategy that's too risky and that they're not willing to stick with. And so again, they'll buy when the market's at its peak, they'll sell when it's at the bottom, and end up not having a good investment experience because they didn't do it the best way, or the most efficient way, we'll say. But having somebody who can help provide a strategy and be someone that you can talk to when people are getting better returns than your investments, and say, it's okay, like we have a strategy, we're going to stick to the strategy, and we're not going to go chasing the things that other people are invested in. Or when the market's falling and they're afraid that it's going to keep falling, you've got somebody who can say, it's okay, the market's going to recover. And in fact, if you've got more money you can put in, now's the time to do it, because when it recovers, you're going to have a better experience than you otherwise would if you just allowed it to recover on its own. And so using an investment strategy that you'll stick to, we're able to get you closer to the middle or to the left of this bar chart. The green bar, the S&P 500, that is considered the stock market. So when you consider we've had 2 recessions over the last 20 years, and the stock market has still performed or still grown at 6% per year, if you had invested there and left it there for the last 20 years, you would have done better than the average investor. So again, it's a long-term strategy. It's a buy and hold strategy, and it's not trying to time the tops and bottoms that some other people attempt to do. And it's also trying to put your investments into all of these different types, so that if real estate over the next 20 years, if real estate continues to be the best investment, then you can benefit from that. But also if it's not, then you can be invested in whatever is going to be the next best thing. So when it comes to financial planning, when I sit down with individuals, we really try to paint the rosy picture. We try to plan for the best, and that looks a little bit different for those of us who have children with special needs, but it also it can be, a lot of it's still the same, right? So we all have debts that we want to pay off. We all want to go on a vacation. We all want to buy a new car. We all want to. We're all eventually going to retire. It's going to come for all of us, whether we like it or not. And so we try to plan as best we can to make sure that we achieve your goals. And again, everybody's different. So some people don't want to have their mortgage paid off. They see there's tax benefits to having a mortgage that they can write off on their tax return. And so they don't necessarily intend to pay it off, but many do. And I do believe that it's good to enjoy life and go on vacations and spend quality time with family. But yeah, retirement's generally the biggest one that we'll talk about and try to strategize with. It's generally the longest time horizon, or the amount of time that we have to plan for it and to save and to invest. And so we're more likely to achieve that goal the longer we have to work on it. But again, there's considerations with home health services and other occupational speech therapy. These are a lot of the things that I work with individuals on, making sure that that we can take care of those items, and then as well as take care of the retirement spending and planning for that. But ultimately, again, the question that I'll ask individuals is what does retirement look like for you, right? Everybody's different. Some people want to go on cruises and golf every day. Some people just plan to stay home and stay around family and have no desire to go anywhere. And then some of us may be different than the average population. We may have an adult child that will be taken care of either part-time or full-time. So again, it's just trying to figure out how is it going to look like for you, and what are we going to be able to do to plan for that, whether it's in saving and investing in retirement accounts, or it's making sure that we've got certain types of insurance in place, or we've got Social Security and other sources of income to take care of whatever the needs are in retirement. And one of the other things that I don't know if it was on this slide or the next one, but since I'm thinking about it, we think of, for the average population, they don't necessarily start thinking about end of life issues. And so I try not to be too morbid, but there's even who's going to take care of your landscaping? Who's going to take care of simple things like changing your air filters and changing your light bulbs? And who's going to check on you on a consistent basis as you get into your 70s and 80s? Making sure that if you've got children that can take care of you, or if you've got a social network, that we're including that as part of your financial plan as well. And those of us who have children with special needs, it fits kind of in the same, because chances are, as we get older and we become less likely to take care of our children, we're going to have something in place for those children to make sure that they're taken care of, whether they're able to live on their own or if they have to be in a care facility, that we get those things taken care of. My wife did tell me not to go overkill on memes, and so I've just included this one as one of my favorites, and there's some truth to it. So if you don't do a budget, then you can't go over budget, right? The saying that my wife has in my boys' room is from Wayne Gretzky, that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, which I've got issues with, because if you don't take the shot, then you can't miss. So it's really more like undefined. But anyway, so budgeting is absolutely critical. For those who are on a budget and you're sticking to it, that's fantastic. A lot of people I talk to, they don't have a budget, and so it's essential right now. But as you get closer to retirement, it's actually kind of surprising. People don't realize how much less they're going to be living on when they get to retirement, or how much they're going to spend, I should say. So having a budget and being able to stick to it now is going to pay off immensely if you can do that now. And so that's something I try to work with individuals on. As far as any software or apps, I've tried several. None of them really work for me, so I don't necessarily have a recommendation on one over the other. I've been doing an Excel spreadsheet since high school, so that's worked for me, and I haven't been able to find anything that's been better than that. I thought about creating my own, but I'm not really a technology guy, so that's one of the things that we want to look at is making sure you have a budget. Next would be emergency savings. I set a goal of having 6 months of expenses in an emergency savings, preferably in an account that's outside of your bank, so that you're not looking at it and thinking that you've got access to it, even if you do, because you obviously want to have access to it in an emergency, but that you've earmarked that for emergencies. As people get closer to retirement, we add more money to it, and a minimum of a year by the time they get to retirement. I had a client call me in March who was planning to retire at the end of the year, and with the market going crazy, he was afraid that he wasn't going to be able to do that anymore. And I just reminded him that we've got a year's worth of expenses so that you can survive in the event we have a recession, and because we don't want to sell any of his retirement investments while the market's down. And the average recession will last about 11 months. So if we allow that to allow the economy to come out of recession, allow the stock market to recover, and then we can look at selling and supplementing his income with his retirement assets. But having as much cash as possible for those types of situations, because again, we don't know when the next pandemic is going to come around and the government's just going to shut us down, and we're going to have to survive on either our emergency savings or hope that they do another stimulus package. But if you've got the emergency savings, then you get that stimulus, and now you can go and stimulate the economy and buy something or go on a vacation when it opens up, and life is good. But yeah, so emergency savings is definitely another critical element to financial planning. With insurance and estate planning, they kind of go hand in hand. So if you have a will and a trust already set up, that's great. If it's been 5 years or more since you set it up, it's good to review those. But if you don't have those in place, it's really important to have those, especially with a child that has special needs that may need additional attention. I think we've probably all heard horror stories of individuals, kids who parents pass away and the state takes over, and it's just turns into a complicated situation. And I think ultimately we want our kids to be happy and taken care of by those that can love them almost as much as we do. So the will allows the state to know who's going to be taking care of your children. The trust will dictate what is going to happen with all your stuff, and where money is going to be allocated to take care of your children. If you are independently wealthy and you can put money into the trust, then that's great. For those who are not independently wealthy, life insurance is the next step, and making sure that you list the trust as the beneficiary of that life insurance. However, not everybody is going to die in the term. If they do a term policy, they won't necessarily die during that term. So more likely it's going to be a disability, or even the accidental death and dismemberment would be something that you would want to consider as a more likely occurrence than dying. But again, people do pass away. We do have freak car accidents, or an illness will come around. So that's definitely something that you'll want to consider, and that will incorporate as part of the financial plan. And again, it's really a conversation. I highly encourage insurance and the different types of insurance that are available. There's obviously a cost associated with those insurances. So that alone could be an hour conversation or more on the different types and what would be best in individual situations. With long-term care insurance, you don't necessarily have to be in your 60s or 70s or 80s to utilize that policy. As long as you meet the criteria to be put into a facility or have home health care services, you can use that as an insurance benefit. So it's something that you can have for yourself as you get older. It's something you could even have on your children. It's something that could potentially be a good strategy to have in your back pocket. But again, there's costs associated with all these. So it really depends on what you're able to do and what you can do. And I can't do a general recommendation, but yeah, something to consider. And the reason that we want to have all these things in place is because no one will love your children as much as you do. And this rang true for me just 2 weeks ago. I was in the office. I've been working from home mostly during this coronavirus stuff, but I happened to go to the office to check the mail and get some stuff done. And I was neck deep in work, and I get a text from my wife that says, "I was just in a bad car accident." And that was it. That's all she gave me. So I'm, you know, thinking to myself, okay, she's obviously conscious enough to send me that text, but I have no other context. Like, is she going to go to the hospital? Did she get hit? Did she hit somebody? Is somebody dead? I'm looking around my desk thinking, this is going to take some time for me to get everything put away and get home. And if it's not a big deal, then I don't necessarily want to stop, because I was in a rhythm. I was doing stuff. But if something was seriously wrong, then I didn't want to be insensitive and stay. So I ended up calling my oldest daughter and asked if she or any of the kids were with my wife, and none of them were. She had just made a trip to Walmart, and I said, okay, well, it sounds like she's been in a car accident, so I'm going to come home and we'll kind of go from there. And I'm getting myself ready to go, and my daughter calls back and she's like, well, I just told all the other kids that mom got in a car accident, and Adam, my autistic son, is the one freaking out the most, that mom's dead. And I said, I don't know. I don't have all the answers, because she's not responding. Like, I was texting her, I was calling her, and she wasn't responding. So I had nothing. But I told her I said, I'll call you as soon as I know what's going on, and go from there. And so, I've got a friend who does my auto insurance. I've got a friend who does personal injury law, and so I'm calling them. I'm trying to figure out, like, what information do I need to have her obtain, assuming she's still alive. And so it was nice to have those people in my team as well. But ultimately, yeah, she called. We had a Toyota Sequoia. She ran a red light. She hit the front bumper of a guy in a Honda Fit, which totaled his car, and there was just a little bit of body damage to ours. Nobody went to the hospital. Nobody hurt, nobody dead, and we had to have a little bit of a conversation about what consists of a bad accident, because I was thinking that it was not quite as bad as maybe she had intended. But anyway, but it was really nice to know that as I'm driving home and waiting for her to call, obviously I didn't want her to die, but in addition to being able to call my insurance guy and the personal injury attorney, and knowing that I had people that were willing to help, we did have life insurance. We do have a will and a trust, and I feel like we've gotten as much taken care of as we can. So in the event that we have an unexpected event like a car accident, which could happen at any time, that things would be taken care of and our kids would be taken care of. But want to get into a little bit of investment strategy in the last couple of slides, and then we'll get into the question answer period. So when it comes to picking an investment strategy and how we want to invest, it really comes down to how your investment growth is taxed. So I've broken it out into 3 basic categories. The first is the standard or brokerage account, which you could have individually in your own name or joint with a spouse or anybody really. A trust would be a standard or brokerage account. A business account like an LLC would be the same way. And if you were to invest, you put money into a trust account. Let's say you put in $100,000, and that grows to $150,000, and you sell the investment. You would pay capital gains tax on that $50,000 of growth. So you can move money in and out of that account all day long. There's no taxes on moving money. It's just if you buy and sell and it grows, the IRS is going to tax you on it. Also very similar with if you have a rental property and you buy and sell a rental property, there's taxes, capital gains taxes on that. The next one is going to be tax deferred, and tax deferred just means we're going to pay taxes later. So this is going to be your 401ks, traditional IRAs, and you receive a tax benefit today as you put money into those accounts, and then but there's no capital gains tax. So if you have $100,000 that you put into your 401k and it grows and you sell it, there's no capital gains tax. But when you pull that money out in retirement, the IRS considers that as income. So you get a tax deduction on contributions today, but you'll get taxed when you pull it out in retirement, and that'll be whatever the tax rate is at that time. And then the last category, tax-free. There's no tax benefit today, so the money you put in, you've already paid taxes on it. It's coming out of your net paycheck. You put money into, we'll say, a Roth IRA, and there's no capital gains taxes there either. So that money you put in will grow over time, and then when you pull that out in retirement, it's tax-free. It's not counted as income, and so there's benefits to having money in all three types of accounts, so that when you get to retirement or whatever the goal may be, you can have access to it and try to reduce the amount of tax that you're ultimately paying. In between tax deferred and tax free, I've also put in 529s and HSAs. They do have tax benefits when you put money in, and they're also tax free when you pull them out if it's for education or health, medical related expenses. So they have some elements of both tax deferred and tax free. So I stuck them in between those two. But I wanted to touch a little bit on 529s and ABLE accounts. So again, 529s are for higher education expenses, typically. So for individuals who are expecting their kids will go to a 4-year university, they can create a 529 account, and they can put money in there and invest it so that when they go to college, there will be money to pay for tuition, tax incentive for those contributions, and the distributions are tax-free if it's for educational expenses. For those who have a disability, and disability is kind of a broad term, it could include somebody who doesn't have an arm, for example. It could be autism, could be Down syndrome. The list is pretty extensive. The ABLE accounts are an option, and ABLE just stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. This is a relatively new thing. The legislation was in 2014. The accounts became available in 2016, and so it's similar to a tax-free where there's no incentive to put the money in. So you've already paid tax on the money that's going in, but it can grow tax-free. So no capital gains on the growth. And if you pull it out and use it for a qualified expense, which again is a very broad definition, it can be for anything, for an example, if I was to get some game for my son that was to help him with his cognitive ability, since he has autism, I could use the money from the ABLE account for that. I mean, it's really broad based. And anybody can fund that. So if you don't personally have the $15,000 that you can put in on an annual basis, anybody can put money into it. And you can, if you had a child that you were setting up a 529 plan and they become disabled, you do have the ability to move that money from the 529 into the ABLE account and then use that for expenses related with the disability. Because otherwise, if you were to pull the money just straight out of the 529, there would be tax penalties associated with it because it wasn't for education, if that makes sense. So it's an option. I wouldn't say it's, at least not in all cases is it a perfect solution, but it's something that is available, and it's worth the conversation to see if it fits in for your individual plan. But again, so I'm not a legal professional, so I don't do estates, I don't do wills and trusts. I'm not a tax professional, So I can give basic information and education on the tax situation of these account types, but when it really comes down to how we're going to do a financial plan, I can do a plan, I can do the investment side of it, but then I try to build a team of other professionals who have more expertise in these different areas, so that we can have the best for everything there. Because I mean, everything has its little nuances, especially with the tax code and legal stuff, and even insurance. There's a lot of nuances, and so making sure we've got somebody whose full-time job is in those areas is important. So that's it. That's all I've got prepared. So we can start with questions. I'll include my contact information while we do the questions. Feel free to reach out to me. So again, I'll try to do my best to answer the questions that are there as specifically as I can. But if we need to have a phone call or set up a time outside of this setting, then we can do that. One of the questions that I get a lot is, how much does it take to get started with investing? And there are investments that have $0 minimums, or you could do something as little as $50 a month, so on and so forth. I did mention I don't believe in having minimum requirements, but Edward Jones as an institution, as a financial advisory institution and as what they call a broker dealer, there are a lot of regulations that they have to comply with and make sure that we're not, stealing your money or defrauding people. And so there's obviously a cost associated with those compliance aspects. So they have recommendations on, depending on what strategies we go with, having minimums, but I mean those can be like as low as $5,000. So it's not anything like other firms, which I won't name, but anyway. So that's it. Sylvia, am I just doing this solo?
I'm happy to read the questions from the chat box for you if you'd like. You do have one right here from Kate. The question is, I did a will that I filled out online and then had it notarized. Is that
Okay.
enough as far as a will goes, or would I need to do a more official will?
So first I'll say I'm not an attorney. So I mean, this is just kind of my opinion. I would not feel comfortable with an online will, because they're very standard, and each state has its own estate code as far as I know. So I prefer using an actual person who works in that field, who knows what all the nuances are. And I mean, ultimately, it's really what it comes down to is making sure you've got what you want done, should you pass away. And I'm not comfortable with online wills, but again, there's obviously a cost associated with going to an estate planning attorney and having them do it. So it's a balance, and whatever works for you. I don't know, and I'm sorry, it's kind of vague. Sorry.
And Kate, I put the contact information for Genevieve Gribble in the chat box. Genevieve is the attorney who presented Special Needs Trust for us a couple weeks back, and she's also offering a free consultation to our members. So I put her email address in the box for you.
Yeah, I've worked with Genevieve for a while. She's great.
Okay, folks, please feel free to put your questions in the chat feature and we will read them out and answer them for you.
And while we're waiting for the next one, Sylvia, I've got one last slide at the bottom. You guys still see this? I guess, Sylvia, you haven't seen it the whole time. So I don't expect that everybody will want to become a client of mine. And so what I try to share with people is this website that's called BrokerCheck. So the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, which makes up the acronym FINRA, is the body that will license financial advisors and make sure that they've got the education and the license to actually sell you a financial plan or an investment. And this website will allow you to search the person that either you use or are thinking about using to make sure that they do have the appropriate licenses. And if they have any complaints against them, it'll show up there as well. And you can see some of those details to see if that's the person, just make sure that you're not getting sucked into some fraudulent scam. This would be something that I would encourage everybody to do, regardless of who you decide to use. But anyway, any other questions, Sylvia?
Yes, we have another question in the chat box. The question is from Steve. Are ABLE accounts like 529s where different states have their own plans?
So for now, Virginia is the only state that has adopted it, and they've made it available to all 50 states. So no, it's basically one plan.
Sylvia, can I just ask a question here?
Of course.
Okay. Can you hear me, Austin?
Yes.
Okay. How would we go about contacting you or setting up an appointment with you? Do you have an office in Lehigh, or do we just give you a call, or what?
So my office is downtown Salt Lake. I live in American Fork, so I generally will meet people where it's easiest for them.
Okay.
I don't require people to go all the way downtown, although the traffic these days is actually really nice. But yeah, I mean, whether it's at your home or a neutral location here in Lehigh or American Fork, yeah.
Okay, and then you just help us get started on a basic financial plan and kind of give us references to those other professionals.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat feature. Since we do have a pretty small group here and it's pretty well contained, if you do want to just turn your microphone on and ask a question, that would be great too.
Hey, Sylvia, this is Leah.
Hi, Leah.
Can I just ask a question?
Absolutely.
Hi, Austin. This has been great. Thank you so much for your time and preparation in the meeting. When you were talking about budgeting, this is something that I feel really strongly about, and I want this meeting to be super valuable for everybody on the call. Have you used any of the budgeting tools that are out there? Because I know there's some really good ones. Truebill is one, Envelopes is one, Mint is one. Have you tried any of those budgeting tools? Because I think keeping a spreadsheet is, I think in the financial planning, the budgeting is such a key part of creating a financial plan and having a budget. Have you tried any of those, and any thoughts about that? I just think a spreadsheet is really unrealistic for most people that aren't super math-minded and organized. Just want to get your thoughts.
I think I'm probably the exception because I use a spreadsheet. But yeah, I've tried Mint. I've tried the You Need a Budget, and then one or two others that I'm not remembering the name at the moment. But the thing that's hard for me is it feels like it's a lot of work up front in trying to identify the category that this expense falls into, because not every time that I go to this place is it going to be in this category. And so if it's automatically, I mean, even if I use my credit card, I mean, the credit card company will classify something on their own, and they'll say, oh yeah, you spent, this much money in this category, and it's like, okay, that doesn't do a whole lot for me. But yeah, I've just what I've done has just evolved over time. So I know it works for me, and so I don't necessarily have a recommendation for a software program, because I think they're good, but ultimately, like you said, it's whatever you can actually use and stick with. So and the less money you have to pay for that software, the better. I think there's some out there that you can pay for, but I mean, you have to include that into your budget now. So
for sure. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Austin? You can use the chat feature or turn your microphone on.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I was wondering if there are some able accounts that you would recommend. I was late to the call, so maybe you had different states that offer it, but Utah, doesn't, and I just don't know, which ones are the best ones with all the different fees and such.
The only state that offers ABLE accounts is Virginia, and they offer it to all 50 states. And you basically just go on to the ABLE Now website, and I think it's probably ablenow.org. I think it's .com. No, it's not. That's not .org. Maybe it's .gov. Now it's not pulling up, so my internet's down. No, it's not. Pardon me. So if you, just Google search ABLE Now or ABLE accounts. It'll take you to the website, and you go through the account opening process, and you list the disability that your child has and all the information that you need for opening that account. And then you pick the investment options that are associated with it. So it's not something that you would do at Edward Jones. It's only offered through the ABLE Now website.
Websites that came up when our members search this. In the chat box, somebody has able-now.com, and then there's another site, ablenrc.org. Are you familiar with which one we should be going to?
Let's see. Yeah, so able-now.com is where you would go. And when you get to that site, top right corner, it has a big box that says open an account. So and you just go through and answer the questions, put in all the information, and then you're done. It's pretty simple.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any other questions, Austin? We'll keep this open for you right now. All right, we'll do one last call here for questions. Okay, well, very good. Austin, we want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank all of our members for joining us today and spending the afternoon learning about this. We hope that it was very valuable for you. Austin, thank you so much for extending your contact information to follow up with our members afterwards if they have more specific questions. We did record the webinar today, so if you have any friends that missed it, please have them reach out to me. I'm happy to send them the link and also the slides, so that way you have that information. And Austin, thank you again. This was so great. We really appreciate your time, and we hope all of you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Sylvia.
Great, thank you.